This is Tom Bernanke. How do you get rid of stubborn, not going away warts? I know you're watching this video because you've already tried simple stuff at CVS. We're going to go over what I would do from a simple, practical plan to the more advanced treatments that I would do that potentially you could look at addressing. We're starting now. Warts are a tricky subject. When I see these, people confuse them with a lot of different skin issues. On the foot specifically, there's corns, there's calluses, there's warts. There's a lot of different issues. In fact, I go over my top 15 most common foot skin problems, my top 25 diabetes conditions, and then corns, calluses, guides. Check that out below. This one, we're dealing with warts specifically. So if you think you're misdiagnosed, check out those videos, but we're focusing on warts. This is where a lot of people get it wrong. And when I see them, they're not even treating the right issue. But you have calluses, corns, and warts. They all look a little bit different. So the difference here is that calluses are wide and flat, corns are pinpoint and hard, and warts are actually an HPV virus. They all start with friction and damage. The wart squeezes in, but you can see the wart actually steals blood vessels, but not nerves, and it has those pinpoint blood vessels. A callus is wide and flat, and a corn is pinpoint hard like a pebble, and it stabs into the skin. They all are treated similarly, but differently at the same time. And warts are caused by the human papilloma virus. The human papilloma virus is a small little virus which enters the body through tiny cuts, breaks, or other weak spots on the bottom of the feet. There are 200 plus related HPV viruses. Some of the high-risk ones can lead to cancer, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the ones specific to the foot or the hands. These are considered plantar warts. These are not spread by sexual contact and are lower risk. There's low risk for cancer, but theoretically it can lead to it. The different types are genital warts, common warts, plantar warts, and flat warts. HPV is often contracted in moist environments like shower floors, swimming pools, or locker rooms, and it leads to a grainy, fleshy growth on the soles of the feet. Technically, they are contagious, but I have to be careful here. The reality is, theoretically, one that's specific for your foot skin or your hand skin will not go to your private areas, but I don't want you to rub in your foot or your hand. Never mind, I'm not going to get into that. But it can always happen. I don't want you to get warts spreading all over your body. So it depends on your immune response, but limit your scratching, your picking, take pressure off of it, use duct tape to protect it. And you can see younger people are more likely to get warts. In this particular study, I'm surprised there wasn't more older people, I think because they didn't have them available. But usually I see it's more common in the female patients, which this chart tends to show, and it's more common in people under 20 when the immune system's a little bit weaker, and people over about 75 or so tend to get them again when the immune system starts to decline a little bit. So your immune system has a lot to do with it. This is usually seen as black pinpoints, often called wart seeds, which are actually small clotted blood vessels. It's usually like an alien invader in your skin that grows out, and the wart has its own blood vessels that it's stealing from you, and there's no nerves. So I could realistically use my laser, my scalpel, and carve out the inside of that wart, and you will not feel it at all if I do it properly. And that's really the trick. In the office, there's tricks to get rid of it 95% almost immediately without it hurting. The beauty of being a foot doctor is I can usually go in there and scoop out about 95% of that wart, and most people do not feel it, like outside of kids who are nervous, and then you can apply some cream. If the wart is bigger, if it's not going away for months and months, and we look at it, there's certain criteria that we can look at. But we can also take a biopsy. Now, again, this should not hurt, but we take that biopsy and we look at it under a microscope to make sure it's not anything cancerous. That's kind of the difference. But at home, there's a lot of great tricks that you can do. And the wart can be painful. It can be tender when walking or standing. It's sometimes mistaken for a corn or a callus, but warts tend to interrupt the normal lines and ridges of the skin, whereas a wart and a corn do not interrupt the skin lines. Corns, on the other hand, are due to friction, pressure due to ill-fitting shoes, high heels, tight socks, deformities of the foot like hammer toes, the fifth toe specifically, hard bumps, raised bumps like the knuckles, hammer toes, and they're commonly located in pressure areas. But you know what? That's what I see with warts as well. In the ball of the foot, in the heel, on the toes, and calluses are kind of like corns, but they're less spiky, less painful, they're more broad and wide, and this is due to repeated friction. But those three are compared quite a bit. They're all painful, they're all major issues, and an extra one is dry cracked skin and athlete's foot. Especially in the winter, as people are older, skin gets dry. There's 5 layers of skin, and dry, thick, hard skin can build up in pressure areas. This can cause pitting, splitting, dryness, flakiness. I have guides on all of those below, and a lot of the remedies I'm talking about can help those as well, but specifically for the viral wart, the HPV virus, these are the top 10, from least practical to most practical and most effective. And this list goes over the simpler, safer stuff that you can usually try at home to the more advanced stuff for the stubborn warts that are just not going away. When you look at higher on the list, some of the studies show the same numbers as the best treatments that I'm going to recommend. But the thing is, you don't try the best treatments unless it's a really resistant or stubborn wart already. That's why the numbers are kind of all over the place in these studies. It's really what kind of wart are you starting with? And when I see patients, sometimes if you have a healthy young kid with one tiny wart, it's guaranteed to get better nearly 100% of the time with a lot of these treatments. But other times I have patients with like a kidney transplant, with diabetes, with poor blood flow, with health issues, with warts everywhere. We have to go with some of these more advanced treatments, and you're looking at more stubborn warts. Number 10, home remedies like tea tree oil, garlic. Studies and success rates are very low. This is mostly stories and reports on the internet, but garlic, tea tree oil, lavender oil, other types can generally be considered less effective. They do soften the skin and they do irritate the skin. And a lot of times your own immune system can come and kill that wart over time. Number 9, duct tape occlusion therapy. There actually was a study in 2002 in the Pediatric and Adolescent Medicine Journal that showed an 85% success rate over 6 months. But the reality is that's kind of the resolution rate for most kids anyway. It does 2 things. Number 1, I think the sweat builds up and prevents irritation, so it lets that skin heal and attack that wart. In my opinion, the duct tape kind of gets pressure off there, stops rubbing, stops that shear force, stops that friction, and as a result, your body can kind of address the wart and heal it. And it stops it from spreading quite as much. Duct tape is not universally accepted. It has its proponents and its detractors. So some people say it works really well. I think it irritates the wart. It stops it from sweating. And if you're adding it and removing it, it's kind of ripping off that dead skin and it can irritate enough. So potentially your body stops it from spreading and starts attacking it. Number 8, over-the-counter cryotherapy kits. So when you go to CVS, when you go to the drugstores, these kits that have cryotherapy, there are studies with these that show decent results. The success rates are not as good as professional cryotherapy, like in a doctor's office, but they are a little bit better than doing nothing. The effectiveness is rated as moderate. It often requires multiple treatments. The problem is, in an office, we can carve out the majority of that center of that wart and get the cryotherapy to attack that wart, so it stimulates your body. 2 things in the office. There's a lot less wart to kill, and it does a lot better job signaling it. In the home, most people get a little bit too aggressive because there's usually callus over the wart. It's not carved out or removed properly, and sometimes your body just does not signal it. It's worth trying. If I was not available to see a doctor, I would definitely try it, but if it's not working, you might need something more aggressive. In clinic, I'm actually a huge fan of cryotherapy. I feel like the ones at home don't get quite as cold. Studies do show that the wart should get to about 190 degrees Celsius below 0. So that's pretty high. That's like in the 300s in Fahrenheit for my American viewers. What that does is that creates ice crystals within the wart, essentially killing it, and your body then creates a local immune reaction to attack and kill that wart so it falls out. Number 7, salicylic acid. This is available at the store as well, and it's actually well studied. A systemic review looked at a lot of studies, and generally the results were about 75% to 80% in the 6-month period. So that's roughly what to expect. It's relatively safe. It's relatively low cost. It's easy to get. The results can be pretty good, especially if you're applying it once a week, a couple times a month or so. That can work well. Salicylic acid is interesting. It has catalytic properties. That means it breaks down the thick skin, it exfoliates the thick skin, and it effectively irritates the warts. So what you want to do is you want to prepare and clean, ideally clean off that callus. And when you apply this, it will get irritated, it will get red. With a lot of salicylic acid, it will develop a blister. But once you apply it and it gets sore, your body starts to attack that wart itself. Number 6, prescription topical treatments. There are ones like Imiquid. Studies and success rates vary. Success can be 50% or more. And you can see these vary all over the place. It is something extra you can add. The reason it's a little bit higher on the list, I would actually lower it. The reason it's higher is because you could do the salicylic acid. You can do the cryotherapy while taking one of these medications. I have another video where I go over the more advanced solutions like medications. So if you're somebody with autoimmune issues, or you're like, man, these warts are not going away, I have like a million across my body, check out that guide about stubborn warts that are just not going away. Number 5, laser therapy. You know, I would actually go a little bit higher with this because in the office, it's essentially pain-free. It works extremely well. If you come visit me in Michigan, this is something we can do for you. We'll kind of work it out. I know some people are worried about prices on these things, but it's something that's definitely worth doing. If you're not having success getting rid of the warts, that's something we can talk about in the office. But success rates can range up to 90% according to different studies. It's really trying different things. If you have a ton of warts that are not going away, and the other things don't work, sometimes trying these more advanced treatments can help. Studies on warts are actually very effective, especially for results that do not respond to other treatments. With the laser, a specific wavelength of light is specifically chosen to target the blood vessels in the wart or the wart tissue itself. Essentially, this impacts the way the blood vessels feed the wart, and at the same time, the wart can die due to lack of blood supply, and it does irritate the wart so that the body attacks it. The good news is this stops the remaining tissue or the surrounding tissue from being irritated, and generally a scab forms and the wart falls out. Combining this with other therapies can be extremely effective. Number 4, professional cryotherapy. Studies and success rates show the rates can be fairly high, 70% or more. I know these studies basically mean nothing percentage-wise because you're like, hey, the better you're getting, the worse the results are getting. The reality is you would not come see a podiatrist unless you already tried stuff at home. You know, unless you don't know what it is. The rates are because this is on more stubborn warts that are not going away. If we did this on an easy wart, it would work nearly 100% of the time. The effectiveness is very high. It can still require more invasive therapy. The reason you would come into the office is because we can trim out the vast majority of the wart at the same time. And number 2, professional cryotherapy ensures that it is cold enough. You want to get it to that minus 196 degrees Celsius. You want to make sure wart crystals develop and kill the inside of the wart. It does irritate the surrounding tissues, a scab does form, and fairly quickly the wart should fall out. And you can combine these with all the other therapies. Number 3, electrosurgery and curettage. Studies and success rates show that essentially scooping out the wart, numbing it up ahead of time, using electricity to kind of burn the root, that is the most successful. So if it's not getting better, that can work extremely well. I rarely need to do this. Between the laser, between the cryotherapy, between the acids, we're usually good 99% of the time at this point. Personally, I've never had to take somebody to the operating room to cut out a wart. I think doing the earlier techniques works virtually 100% of the time, unless somebody has like a severe immune condition. And we'll talk about that in a second with some of the easier treatments. Also, if it's suspected that the wart is potentially cancerous, that means if it's been there for years and it does show suspicious signs, we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. We want to take a biopsy and we want to study it on the microscope, but then I'm not cutting it out. I would send it to an oncologist. Number 2, immunotherapy. Studies and success rates show that this can work really well, 70% or more for very resistant warts. We're looking at the Candida antigen. We're looking at the tricholosis mycophyton antigen, imiquid cream. So this cream is a more practical option out of all these. I don't really use the other ones. I just feel like I don't need to. But number one, and the most effective thing for stubborn warts, is combination therapy. Cryotherapy, salicylic acid, the laser. There's other stronger acids that we use as well. These can be extremely effective, and that's really what takes care of the problem. So this isn't the big secret yet, but what I usually do for the warts are we trim it as much as possible in the office. My scalpel animation is getting out of control there. Don't injure that surrounding tissue. I promise I won't do that in the office. I used to have videos of this stuff up, but YouTube demonetized them all. Otherwise, I'd love showing these videos. So maybe you guys can give me some tips on how to do that. Maybe I'm missing something, but cryofreeze, salicylic acid, there's a few other acids I use, the laser, and then I put duct tape on top of it. This almost always, I'd say like 95+% of the time, does the trick safely. But here's the big secret. Here's what it really comes down to for me. All right, number one, try the different ones. You got to try different things. Sometimes people respond well to the acid. Sometimes people respond well to the laser. Sometimes people respond well to the cryotherapy. You can do them all at once. You know, that's the benefit of visiting the doctor's office. The big secret is if you're not getting success at home, you got to trim out the wart. Get into the root, you can numb it up, you can put creams, you can put injections, and you could scoop it out. Then you can apply all these. The effectiveness just shoots through the roof at this point. And I'm not saying this is something you do at the beginning. This is not something you do for a little kid, but these are for stubborn, resistant warts. And number two, you got to get pressure off the site. What I see with warts is it's a combination of thick, dry skin, thick callus that splits, and the wart gets in there. People are using these great medications that normally work well, but getting the right orthotic, the right shoes to get pressure off underneath the big toe joint, underneath the fifth toe joint, for example, the heel, right away it improves. And there's one example I can think of. I have this one younger guy, he had warts all over the place in the ball of his foot and his heel. He had a kidney transplant. He has autoimmune issues. He's on basically immune blocking medication. As soon as we put him in a modified orthotics, his warts disappeared, not even changing anything else, doing the same treatments he was doing. The problem is walking barefoot or in the wrong shoes, the wart rubs, the calluses, the corns rub. But if you can get pressure off with padding, with the right orthotic, with the right shoe, the rubbing stops, the skin heals, and the wart has nowhere to get into the skin, and it heals up pretty quickly.